Greetings all, Ferrari 601 here. First of all, your eyes do not deceive you. This is the McLaren MP413 here in Assetto Corsa, booted up in the pit lane at Imola. Those of you who are astute Assetto Corsa fans, you know that the McLaren MP413 was put out about a year and a half ago now, maybe a little bit longer than that ago by now, by Virtua Simulazioni out of Italy. Since the latest rafts of Assetto Corsa updates that we've gotten, the MP413 and its sister car, the Ferrari F300, both from the 1998 season, they've been undrivable. The physics have moved on so much in Assetto Corsa now that they're just ridiculously undrivable, and probably most importantly of all, the sounds haven't worked because of the changes in the implementation of that F-mod architecture in Assetto Corsa for making the sounds work. So these cars have been pretty much gone as far as my channel's been concerned, and as far as everybody else has been concerned. Everybody who's been staying up to date with the Assetto Corsa releases, the service packs and all of that, these cars have since ceased to exist, but not anymore. One of my loyal viewers, we'll call him John, he is a bit of a modder in his own right, and he has decided to do some work on the MP413 as well as on the Ferrari F300 Virtua. As far as I know, have completely abandoned these projects, which means that we have them as is. They were freeware right from the beginning, and at this point, we're not talking about public releases. I don't know if we'll ever get a public release on this. I don't know if that's within John's rights to do, but if that does happen in the future, who knows? But what I want to do today is do a little bit of development work. Mostly this video is for John. I want to give you some feedback on what I see so far in the MP413, and later on we'll do the F300 as well. But today I want to focus on the MP413 and just look at what's going on here in terms of where we are and maybe where we can go. The biggest thing right now about this car is we don't have the original sounds in it that Virtua used. They had a really great sound pack with this car. It sounded pretty much like that Mercedes Ilmor V10 engine. It was phenomenal. Problem is, it was set up for the old sound architecture in the old version of Assetto Corsa, which means that it doesn't work anymore. And I personally don't have any insight into how to make those sounds work again, but they were fantastic. So I don't know if it's a question of changing some file extensions, if it's as simple as that, or if there's more advanced architectural things to do in the coding to make the sounds work. But whatever it is, those sounds are really good. So if it's at all possible to bring those sounds back, we need to. I don't know how to do that, but I can maybe help you out with the physics side, with the car setup side, that kind of thing. So that's something that I want to talk about today. First of all here, back in the pit screen, I haven't changed a thing. It is on default setup. You can see some of these gear ratios are a little weird in terms of the fractions that we see. They can probably be reduced to lowest terms, but still, they are the gear ratios and they make sense as far as I'm concerned. The tires compound here, you have soft, medium, and hard. I believe that's the same as the original Virtua mod was. And then all default values, of course. We're just going to reset the setup to default here and go out on track. Default fuel level at 50 liters and all of that. I'm not going to touch anything with the setup to begin with. And we're just going to see how the cookie crumbles here on this first shakedown run. There's first gear selected. And we're off. View from the cockpit, I've lowered it a bit from its default eye point. Default eye point is a bit high for my liking. So we'll just get some temperature in the tires here. Get the brakes up to temp. Details on the setup that I'm using to drive. I've got a Thrustmaster TSPC. I'm running the stock rim that comes with that. So the Formula style rim. Just with the two paddles up and down on the back, clutch pedal of course. At low speed, you can see in the lower left there, I've got my pedal trace and you can see the force feedback rates. Force feedback feels good right now as far as I'm concerned. I can't honestly recall what the force feedback felt like on the Virtua mod. I'm led to believe that this is similar to what it was originally, but it feels fine. It feels absolutely fine. The steering's not too heavy, it's not too light. Even at low speeds like this, it's okay. My tire temps have really fallen off here. revs on the engine. Start to get some heat into these tires here. Car builds speed nicely, it's stable here, running at the top end, no problems as far as I'm concerned. Good XL even here at the top of 6th gear. Brakes are real touchy, they respond nicely. They'll get better once the temperature's really in them. Gearbox is fantastic. Those shift timings feel right about perfect, particularly on the downshifts. They're real crisp and they're really fast. Really nice. It feels appropriate. And now that we're just building speed gradually here, I can say the car feels very stable here on default setup. I'm just running in the standard configuration here, the standard variant. You've got 3 variants in here. You've got standard, low downforce, and high downforce. This feels good. A little bit squirrely there. Rear tire's still not up to temperature. And over the bumps here, coming down into the Rivazza corners, bumpy under braking. Little bit of a snatch there on the front left. No problem. A little bit of understeer mid-corner. Again, tire temps. May be difficult to build tire temperature here. We'll see how it goes. Rears are almost there. The fronts are nowhere. Bit of oversteer there. I'm loading the front axle too much on purpose there. I'm just trying to get heat into those front tires. They're just not biting, but again, default setup tweaks may happen. That's to be expected. Look at that, yeah. Although engine power feels good. Mentioned the gearbox, it feels good. Real quick, really responsive. Nice crisp downshifts in particular. The auto blip is right. The revs are matched. I don't have any rear locking on the downshifts. The engine's not over-revving. No problem there. The upshifts, the cut is good. So it's lifting automatically as it should. You see my pedal trace there is just flat on the floor through all the upshifts. And you can see the throttle trace there on the downshifts. That's the auto blip. I'm not blipping the throttle on the downshifts. A couple graphical things you can see there. As I go around the corners in the lower left or the lower right, you can see the driver's head there is just coming into the field of view a little bit. I think this is still the old Kunos driver, so that was a problem on the Virtua cars untouched once the updates were applied to the later versions of AC, so that's still there. That's fine. It's a kink to work out perhaps, but really a minor fault. Seeing the tire temps, the rear tires are they're overpressuring a bit. Surface temperature is getting high, but the core temps are pretty much where they should be. If anything, they're still slightly cool. But the power curve on the engine feels right. It really comes in at top end. I don't know, John, if you've made any changes to the power curve, but it feels appropriate. I do want to know, though, what you did with the physics in general. I don't know if it's purely switching to the V10 tire model or what, but I remember the Virtua car being really, really unstable all the time. Braking into high-speed corners, going through high-speed corners. The back end was just all over the place. This is a lot more planted, even with the warm-up issues I'm getting on the tires. There's the oversteer there. So far, feeling fine, completely controllable, no problems whatsoever. Let's bring the lap times up. We're not going for pace yet. There we go. I got my entry point a bit wrong, as I was preoccupied with bringing up the lap time screen. That's my error. These cars are so clumsy to get turned around again. All right. Understeer. Yeah, I've got warm-up issues so far. That's my biggest complaint. Just getting heat in the tires and keeping it there. I don't know if the tire pressures are a little high. It feels like they might be. The current readouts, if you can't read them, on the rear we are 25 PSI left and right, and on the fronts we are 23 PSI left and right. And honestly, just my own intuition is telling me tire pressures are too high. Because they're just skating across the track surface rather than really getting good purchase into it. So that's a setup thing. That may be one of the first things we investigate. Let's see if we can set a decent lap here. Fuel level, 36 liters. Let's see if we can get a base lap time here and then see what we can do. 35 liters now on the fuel. That oversteer now coming in. Rear tires are a lot hotter than the fronts. Again, I'm being conservative, but I'm driving it as hard as I want to right now, as I haven't done any laps in this car at all for about a year. Third gear here on the power. Nice. Decent traction there, and that's a difficult traction zone. It is. Coming down through Acqua Minerale, that's my fault, locking up. Car is very compliant over the bumps coming up the hill here toward Variante Alta, no problem. There's that oversteer, and my fault. Just catching me out because and I hit the rear wing. Yeah, it's catching me out a bit because I've got those rear tires getting hot and the fronts are not getting hot. I wanted to set up a base lap time here. Let's do that. Let's be scientific about it. Let's do 30 liters on board. Now you see the tire temps coming out of the warmers. Core temps are at 80 C on all the tires, and when we come out of the pit box, of course, the temperature just falls away instantly. But if we do an aggressive warm-up here, I want to see if I can get those fronts up to temperature. I'm initially suspicious of tire pressure, and then later on, perhaps some suspension settings with ride height to get some rake into the car, into the front end a bit. Maybe some aero tweaks, we'll see. Really scrub those tires across the track here and get them warmed up. Should also probably mention I have no assists. Traction control is not even available in this car, so that's fine. I've got no assists, no traction control, no brake assist, no steering assist, none of that. So what you see is what you get. Let's just see if we can put in a banker here. Great straight line speed. The aero efficiency is real high, I'm going to say. I don't know if that's appropriate or or if maybe the aero efficiency is a little bit too good. According to the downforce levels, I'm not sure if it matches up one-to-one. Again, I'm not looking at all of the physics data, but it's for the same reason that ASR's F2004 seems a little bit too fast in a straight line. Maybe that could be going on here as well. Shot it. I don't have the confidence on the brakes because of those tire temps. .128.986. That's our lap time there. Go for one more. Yeah, look at that. Just snatching the fronts under braking. I think it's tire temperature related. Brake bias is 55% to the front, so default. Down a 10th in sector 1. Yeah, conversely, it's got good traction on Axel, which is a little bit surprising considering how squirrely the rear is. I did mention that the Virtua car was very squirrely on the rear end. This is better. It's a lot better than that, but it is still a bit squirrely. We're braking there. Better. Still don't have those fronts anywhere near where That's a 127.961, so improvement of about a second there. That's a reasonable baseline. We'll see where we end up, but I want to get back into the pits now on this lap and then decide where to go from here in terms of the setup. I want to play with tire temperatures first, because they all seem too high. The rears are sitting at 26 on the left rear and 27 on the right rear. Fronts are sitting at 24 on the left front, 25 on the right front. It's gone back down to 24 now on the right front, 23 on the left front. Of course, all these measurements are in PSI. Yep. It's balance change under braking there. Lock up. Okay, first off, I do just want to say what a pleasure it is to be in this car again, because, like I said, it's been about a year now, and this was one of my favorite cars. It really was, and to have it back is really, really cool, even though it's not really back yet. Initial impressions on that first run on default setup is the baseline feels good enough. It is a little unstable at the rear through the high-speed corners as well as under braking, as you saw. I think some of that is down to just default setup. I think that can be ironed out with either adding a little bit more rake to the front end, and we're going to play with tire pressures first. But aside from that, everything feels good. The steering weight is good. The force feedback is convincing. The gearbox is great. The doesn't need to be touched. It's responsive enough. The shifts are good. The rev matching on the downshifts is good. The auto lift on the upshift is good. So I've got no complaints about the gearbox. The clutch bite, for what it's worth, it's consistent. It's pretty linear. And I don't think it'd be too easy to stall the thing on a start, provided, of course, you know how to start a Formula 1 car. So I don't think that's really a concern clutch-wise. Tires, as far as I can tell, they feel appropriate. Like I said, I think the pressures are a bit high on the default setup. We'll play with that right now, and that'll be the only thing we change for this first run. We can set them all the way down to 14. I know, for example, on Codstar's F2002, they go down to 8 or even 6 PSI. I usually run them around 8. On the SF70H Ferrari from Kunos, if you run the tire pressures lower, you get better grip, of course at the expense of tire wear, but I'm going to lower them to as low as we can go, 14 PSI, on the soft compounds, and I'm not going to change anything else about the setup. So again, our baseline lap time is a 127.961. We'll see what we can get on with this one here. Again, that's the clutch bite. Let's do a practice start here at the end of the pit lane. So I know I don't have the tire temps yet, but just a general starting procedure. We're in neutral. I've got throttle, clutch in, first gear. Let's raise the revs. Get him somewhere in the middle, happy there. Very reasonable. It just completely dumped the clutch straight away and just balanced the throttle. No bog down, no nothing. If anything, wheel spin is your enemy. But starts fine, no problems there. Throttle's a bit touchy just when you're at a standstill, but just deal with that. That's not a problem as far as I'm concerned. Tire temps, obviously, we've got to come up. The rears will come up first because that's where all the power's going down. Let's see if we can get more bite into those front tires, get the heat up in them. We're only talking a difference of 4 PSI cold. So I don't know if the change will be that dramatic, but initial impressions are they're a little bit more bitey. Oversteer there, four-wheel drift. And let's go set a time. Rears are overheating now. At least the surface temperature. The core temperature is almost at 100 C. I've definitely got more traction now. And look at the temp on the right front. It's in the green now. Core temp on the right front is 76. Core temp on the left front is 70. Right rear 92, 93. Left rear 90. We're up by almost 3/10 in Sector 2. That is relative to our session best, 127.961. And that's a bit of oversteer. I think we lost our advantage there. Yeah. 27.807 for what it's worth. New session best. Not the best lap in the world. There is more speed in it if we want it. Now those rears are overheating. The long straight at the lower temperature, lower pressure, higher temperature, more rolling resistance due to that lower pressure, so more heat in a straight line. Now the car feels rear limited in terms of the medium and low speed corners. So I'm thinking splitting the pressure difference, keeping the rears near default, then lowering the fronts because that right front is now up to temperature. Yep, car's definitely rear limited. Have a look at the steering correction I'm having to make. Variante Alta, down by 4/10. I just didn't have that traction through Sector 1. What have we here? 127.651, so the times are falling little by little. Again, the rear tires overheat down the straight. That we have to correct with the pressure adjustment. The rear pressures are too low. So we've gone from front limited grip to rear limited grip. So we're at the two extreme ends of the spectrum in a 4 psi window. So it's really, really tight in terms of that pressure setup. And that's the only change I've made. For a moment, I'll read the pressures out. Left front, 21. Right front, 21. Left rear, 23. Right rear, 24. Core temps, left front, 67. Right front, 70. Left rear, 88. And right rear, 88. Watch the core temps down the straight, they're going to climb. 28.343. Core temps, 97, 98, 99. And getting into Tamburello here, the car just skates on the rear axle. More skating on the rear axle, almost to center on the steering there. Doesn't control the slide. First sector hurts a lot because of those tire temps. Again, we're going to have to make a pressure change. .128, 176. So we're about half a second down on session best. Up by 50 thousandths, sector 1. down sector 2, 8/10. Yep. And there's that rear limiting again. I think we've learned everything we need to learn from this run. We know that the rear tire temps are getting too hot, and that's most likely due to the rear tire pressures being too low. So we'll come in and make that adjustment. Tire pressure adjustment certainly helped on the front axle, and you can see the wear rates are fairly uniform front to rear there. I can make this window a bit wider for us, and we can just have a look. Wear rates, as you can see there, fairly uniform front to rear, which is somewhat surprising considering that temperature disparity front to rear, but now you can see that the cold temps have dropped back down to 16 psi. So in actuality, it's a 2 psi adjustment, because remember that we've got to factor in the ambient air temperature into that core temperature of the tire. So dropping down to 15, and I'm assuming that they're not going to drop that much more. Core temps there, you can see they've stabilized 36 on the rear and 34 on the left front, and now the right front. Tires themselves feel consistent. I'm not at all concerned about them changing too much over the course of a run, but it's a pressure problem like we've been saying so far. So let's make that adjustment again onto the rear axle only. So let's bring this back up to the default and leave the fronts where they were, and then we'll be able to eliminate this variable of tire pressures. So 14 psi on the front and 18 psi on the rear. For the sake of consistency, we'll do another practice start. All right, we'll go at 55. Cool. No problems there. Rear tire pressure going up to 26 now. So we can control the temperature problem, but we trade it off for a pressure problem. Let's see if we can put in a lap time. Up by 6/10 there in Sector 1. Lots of oversteer. Still up by 0.3 for Sector 2. .27.641. So big gains in Sector 1, and then we lose it at the end of Sector 1 with the oversteer through Tosa. And then oversteer again into Variante Alta as well as Rivazza. So I've got a good car in Sector 1. Down by 0.2 in Sector 1, not worried about that. So we'll make it back up, provided the rest of the lap is clean. A little too much throttle there on my part. The car's really compliant over the curbing, I'm noticing. I've been hesitant to approach the curbs so far, but I'm going to start to attack them a little bit more, because it feels like it can handle it, oversteer aside. Look at that, up 0.3 now in Sector 2. .27.095, up 5.5 tenths. So there is more speed in this thing. That's overcooked. I tried to steal a little bit more real estate that time. Came up snake eyes. Again, part of this development work is trying to figure out where the limit actually is. And that's where the limit actually is. Tire wear, though, uniform across the front and rear axle. The only other graphical thing that I want to talk about is the shift lights. They feel fine, they look fine, and they function normally. It just seems like the last one, maybe the last two shift lights over to the right-hand side of the dash, I'm thinking that perhaps they're coming on a little too early because there's a little bit more rev in that engine. It may just be down to personal preference. I tend not to like the final light to come on until we're basically at red line, but you can see after that last light comes on over to the right hand side, there's still maybe 600-700 revs in the motor, so that may be a little bit too early. Again, it's not something that's going to be the end of the world, but just what I've noticed. Rear pressure is 27. Front axle feels great now. 100%. We've returned to rear limited. Don't have the confidence to turn in hard. Liters of fuel remaining. Last lap was a 127.758. Rear pressure is at 27. Down by 4/10. .564 plus 0.469 on the best time. That's our delta. Minus 0.170, sector 1. Plus 0.311, sector 2. There's that oversteer. More oversteer. One 28.388, so we're down 1.293, so that's plus 1.293 on session best, even at 5 liters of fuel. Factoring tire wear, of course, inconsistencies in tire temperature, biggest hurdle, as far as I can tell right now on the default setup. Minus 0.055, sector 1. plus 0.171 sector 2. .127.514. We're going to flip it around here at the end of the straight. So far, default setup, the biggest concern that I've got is the inconsistency in the tire pressures and the tire temperatures, because I can lower the pressures down to 14 psi, which evidently seems still a little bit too high, at least on the soft tires. Again, I've only run the soft so far. I don't know how the mediums and the hards are going to react yet, and we'll do that in the the next round of this sort of testing. But right now, preliminarily, without making any setup changes apart from the tire pressures, the inconsistencies in the tire pressures and tire temperatures during the run, that's a big limiting factor. Aside from that, the car feels great. The force feedback is good. The steering weight is good. The gearbox, like I mentioned, is fantastic. Throttle response is linear, and the power curve is nice. When you get into the torque curve, it's there. The maximum power comes in higher up in the range, just as it should, which is nice. In terms of the default gearing, it's perfect for this circuit. And starting the car, great. No problems there finding the clutch bite point. You can just dump the clutch when you've got appropriate revs on, and then just use the throttle to control the wheel spin off the line. So that's fine. Complaints? We know about the sound problem. The driver's head, I think this is the old Kunos driver with the old dimensions, so you can see as you go through the corners, you can see the little side of his chin area or whatever in the screen. So that's something to be dealt with on the graphics side of things. Otherwise, the car looks great. It feels pretty good. Again, we can deal with setup changes to come. But so far, what you've got is really, really cool. And it's really great to see this car back in action, at least in some capacity, because I've missed this thing a lot. And it's really cool to see that finally somebody has decided we need to resurrect this thing. We've all been talking about this car missing for quite some time, and now we at least to some extent are beginning to see it resurrected. So this is really, really cool. I know you've also worked on the Ferrari F300. I'm going to have a look at that one as well, and we're going to do the same things with that car. I've only done a shakedown run in it just to make sure that everything installed correctly, so I really haven't driven it to any extent. Here we did 25 laps, which I think is pretty cool for an initial test, and really, I don't have any complaints about the quality of your work by any stretch of the imagination. You've clearly done this before, and it shows. This is great. This is absolutely great. The biggest hurdle, I think, is going to be the sounds, because you've nailed the physics. If you have made any changes to the physics, I think you've been very gentle with them, because this car felt great from the word go back when it was first released, and it only became undrivable because of what happened with the Assetto Corsa. So 10 out of 10 so far on the physics. Again, it's just the inconsistencies in tire pressures and tire temperatures throughout the run. That's my biggest complaint right now, and we'll see what we can do about that with setup changes later on. But for now, that's what I've got for you, and hopefully you found this useful in terms of some initial feedback. I'm going to have more for you. And then if anybody else actually watched this thing to the end, first of all, thanks for that. And secondly, maybe you learned something about development work, because it's not pretty, it's not particularly fun. It's just looking at numbers and looking at data points and trying to figure out what correlations exist where. So that's what we're doing with this, and it's tedious, it's painstaking, but somebody's got to do it. And John asked me kindly, hey, look, I've got this, I'm working on it, you want to have a go? So Hopefully, what we've done here can help him out a little bit, and hopefully we can have something here in the near future regarding the 413 at very least, and maybe the F300 as well. So, till next time, FerrariMan601 saying thank you very much for watching. And John, thank you very much for the great work that you're continuing to do with this car, because it is fantastic, and it's so great to have it back, at least to some extent, some somewhat crippled capacity at the moment. But it's still really fun, despite the sounds not being quite right yet. But we'll figure it out. So thank you for all your work, and thank all of you for watching. FerrariMan601 saying thank you very much, and we will see you soon.